Friendship is Magic is back in business. I just want to start off right off the bat here and say the season premiere was a lot of fun and met expectations, at least for me. A lot was riding on this episode because this was the first episode where DHX was, for the most part, flying without Lauren Faust's input. If I recall, Lauren no longer has any input on the show's production, so, no pressure. The way I saw it, as for a two-parter, this felt to be the most well-paced of the other ones we've seen so far. This, however, came with some sacrifice, but in the end, that sacrifice worked. The action starts out quick with Celestia getting notice of the Crystal Empire's return. I love it when Celestia departs from any notions of being a frilly princess and is shown being serious and getting shit done. Love that. Adds a sense of maturity to her role. Twi is freaking out over her schoolwork. It's been done before, but it hasn't gotten old yet. I'm sure many caught this Star Wars reference. At first I wasn't sure if it was one or not, but come on, how could it not be? Shining Armor is his own Tauntaun.
We'd better get moving. There are things out here we really don't want to run into after dark.
Yeah, this.
Matter? You smell something?
I like this scene here where Shining in a way sacrifices himself to slow down Sombra's shadow. It's sort of a foreshadow to the lesson at the end. Oh no, he's been infected. We must amputate the horn before you turn. I was a little taken back by Cadence's similar use of magic to create a barrier to protect the city. It's almost literally the same concept from the wedding episode and the barrier used there. However, it sort of does reveal how Cadence and Shining Armor are meant to be taken as a pair. They are both protectors and guardians, and in this sense it works because it emphasizes their duality and purpose as a team. The actual Crystal Citizens were a nice touch of detail that might have otherwise been overlooked. Much like the Canterlaw Elites, these were not recolored characters. Even their eye reflections were polygons, hinting at their relation to crystals. A small but clever and detailed difference which makes them all the more unique. I feel most of the humor was centered around the main six, investigating and putting on the festival. There are plenty of gags and randomness going on here, especially with Pinky. This will never get old. And I pretty much held my mouth open in amusement, pointing at the screen laughing to myself WTF when this happened. Pinky made sure to drop the silliness. As for the rest of the main six, I'm a little biased, but I think Rarity really shined through here among the other four, discounting Twi. Her gags and interactions felt uncommonly natural for her character in comparison to some other episodes. Despite being one of the more feminine of the six, her quirks here were very amusing, even for me. I mean, she made a hat out of her last few pieces of hay and a straw. And she made it work, guys. Come on. AJ also really shined here, too. She was writing character here, maintaining her element of honesty fairly well. She supported the others in a way we only expect AJ to. However, I can't say the same too much for Dash or Fluttershy. Dash seemed to be a little exaggerated at times, and even a little bit inconsiderate. The one line where she didn't want to go too soft on Fluttershy in order to protect her reputation seemed a little off-putting. Come on, Dash, it's Fluttershy. With all due respect to her as a character, you hardly have to even try with her to outperform her, especially in a sport like jousting. I will admit that I think if any character has been deviating the most from Season 1, I feel it is Dash. She's not so much changing character, but her traits are just becoming more exaggerated. In any case, I enjoyed the back and forth she had with AJ. It's definitely a fun dynamic between those two. I thought the troll comment with Rarity was brilliant. Fluttershy, meanwhile, was sort of outperformed by the others and didn't really stand out, I feel. She had her usual shy and timid gags, but all in all I feel she had the least amount of screen time or interaction. She's felt a little out of place here in this plot. She doesn't really do well in the adventure episodes, in my opinion. As for the villain, Sombra, I can see why people were disappointed in him, but I don't think that makes him any less a decent villain for the plot. He didn't say much, never got any development. Yeah, I know. This was his only real weakness, I believe, when compared to Discord and the other villains. He wasn't so much a villain, but more of like a symbol. He was an approaching evil that added haste and importance to the plot in the same way as, like, the Wendigos were. Also, I have a theory that I just happened to share with other people. I'm not copying them. I actually thought this on my own when I first thought of it. It's just like a coincidence, great minds think alike. About Sombra. He might actually be a victim of the same sources which affected Nightmare Moon. 1,000 years ago, isn't that a little coincidental? The theory being that since Sombra seems to have the same powers and abilities as Nightmare Moon, one can infer that Nightmare Moon and Sombra were both infected or influenced by the same ancient evil that came over Equestria 1,000 years ago. In this sense, if it is true, there isn't much else to really understand about Sombra, I believe. He's been corrupted, he's now evil, he's returned with a vengeance. However, if this is true, then there is a way to cure his infection, as we saw at Nightmare Moon. However, this possibility is never mentioned or even hinted at. This was the first god or demigod villain we've seen where the elements of harmony were never intended to be used or even mentioned, for that matter. Even though they could clearly cleanse the darkness away from such a target, if we assume the darkness is the same thing that affected Nightmare Moon. Curious, really. So he's a boring villain in the sense that he had little to no characterization, but as a villain for the sake of being a plot device, he works. Didn't really bother me. This was a sacrifice I mentioned earlier that DHX had to make to keep the pacing reasonable. If they wanted to do more with Sombra's background, then either the pacing would be too quick or they need a third episode. There really is no way around it. The adult audience probably would have enjoyed more, background on him, but for the target audience, he's evil, we must beat him, the end. But for what they did, sacrifice Sombra's story for better pacing, I think it was worth it. It would have been nice to know more about him, but, it came out well. The songs present in the episode were once again enjoyable and fairly catchy. Personally, I felt some of the lyrics were a bit cheesy, but no one could ignore the professional execution of the songs as a whole. I'm starting to feel more Disney influences going on here, which for me is a good thing, and I'm sure others are enjoying as well. And 2 final notes. I feel that despite whatever else is happening on screen, Friendship is Magic is really maturing. First, I base this off the lesson at the end. Self-sacrifice. That's a fairly mature and sophisticated lesson, at least for kids. This is the kind of lesson we might see in an action or drama film. And it was handled nicely. Unlike some episodes where the plots were predictable, I didn't see what was coming until it was right in front of me. When Spike saved the day after Twi realized she couldn't. Then it hit me. Oh crap, this is a sacrifice moral. And finally, the inclusion of a subplot that cannot be ignored. This time around, Luna did do something. And that was keep us guessing. Why did she give Twi that face? What was that book? What will Twi be ready for? There's something deeper going on here. The fact that it's not made 100% apparent adds to the mystery. There's definitely something going on in the background, and Celestia and Luna are definitely planning something. Whether this is played out through the season, or a lifetime of the show, either way it leaves us with questions seeking answers. Perhaps Friendship is Magic is in fact taking up a more linear storytelling format and perhaps adapting their slice-of-life episodes to meet this new direction. It'll be interesting to find out what happens. These kind of open-ended questions are what drive interest in literary devices, and at least to me, are signs of maturity and devotion to that medium. For the first season without Lauren Fast, I'm content. With a few deviations in character here and there, I'm looking at you, Dash. The development team, as we've come to realize, knows what they are doing. Their love for what they do is apparent, and for that, we thank you. What did you think of the episode and the direction it's taking now that Lauren has moved on? Like, comment, subscribe. I'll be here next episode. If you want to follow my reviews, stick around. Wheels out.
All those doubts that you can dismiss, trust yourself and you cannot miss. Turns out you were. Turns out I was. Turns out you were. Turns out I was. Turns out you were prepared for this.
Yeah, I knew everything was gonna be fine.